My sister and I were both orphans at the Mercy Children's Home. She was beautiful and dignified, while I was rather plain. When the Ning family came to adopt me, I knelt and kowtowed in gratitude. My sister remarked coolly, "Even when begging to be adopted, one mustn't lose dignity. Your behavior is truly unbecoming." She was therefore highly praised for her integrity and was adopted by the Ning family, while I ended up wandering the streets, becoming a beggar, by chance. I caught sight of my sister's fiancé, Prince Chenping, out with his mistress. I tried to warn her kindly, but she dragged me along, insisting I say it to Prince Chenping's face. He may be at fault, but secretly telling me about it shows your malicious intent. Prince Chenping turned the tables on me, accusing me of trying to seduce him, and ordered his men to beat me to death. I begged my sister through tears to save me. Pouting, she said, "You knew he was a philanderer yet still clung to him. What else is that but willingly degrading yourself?" I was beaten to death with clubs, and my corpse was thrown into the bottom of the lake. Yet my sister reconciled with Prince Chenping and married him in a grand, glorious ceremony. When I opened my eyes again, I had returned to the day the Ning couple came to adopt us. Madame Ning believes in Buddhism and has the greatest compassion for the poor. The moment I opened my eyes, my sister Rongyen was smearing mud and ash on my face while I wore the tattered rags she'd painstakingly gathered for me. Dressed as a beggar like this, Madame Ning's heart will surely break when she sees you. I looked at my sister Rongyen before me, her delicate brows furrowed, head bowed low, her fair skin like blossoms and elegant silk robes pristine. The agony of drowning from my near-death experience still seemed to cling to me. In my previous life, I accidentally saved the young master of the Ning family from drowning, and the aunt at the orphanage said that Madame Ning intended to adopt me as her daughter. At that time, Rong Yang dressed me up as a beggar. She taught me that I must recount every bit of hardship and suffering I endured here to Madame Ning. I argued with her, saying that the aunt at the orphanage treated us very well, teaching us to read and write, as well as needlework and embroidery. How could I possibly speak falsely? My sister Rongyen patted my hand and said, "Silly girl, if you don't say it like this, how will people take pity on you?" Later, when Madame Ning arrived, I didn't speak as my sister had taught me, but simply kowtowed to express gratitude for Madame Ning's kindness. Yet my beggar-like attire made Madame Ning suspicious. She questioned why the orphanage, which received government funds, would mistreat orphaned girls. Sister Song of the Benevolent Children Bureau was furious and immediately summoned everyone. The crowd stood neatly dressed in several rows, while only I remained covered in mud and dressed in rags. At that moment, Rong Yang stepped forward and gracefully bowed to Madame Ning. My sister sought a better future for herself but took the wrong path. I apologize to you on her behalf. She looked at me kneeling and kowtowing, then said indifferently, "Even when begging for adoption, one must not lose dignity. Your behavior is truly unbecoming." Lady Ning, the wife of the Hanlin Academy's grand scholar, had always detested those who resorted to cunning and opportunism. She immediately frowned and only rewarded me with 10 taels of silver in gratitude for saving her son. Rongyen and I are sisters. In our early years, our family met with disaster, which led us to drift to the orphanage. In my past life, I always believed that my sister didn't mean it that way. She was only afraid that Madame Ning would vent her anger on me, so she resorted to this last resort. As a result, I lost the chance to be adopted by the Ning family. That very night, however, the Ning family's steward sent a sedan chair to take my sister Rongyen away. It turned out that Grand Scholar Ning had heard about Rongyen's deeds at the orphanage and greatly admired her integrity, deciding to adopt her as his daughter. When the sedan chair carrying my sister arrived, Auntie Song from the Benevolent Children's Home stood with arms akimbo, scolding me. "Rong Yu, you deliberately dressed like a beggar. Have I ever starved you or left you without clothes? Our humble institution is too small to accommodate someone as grand as you." I was driven out of the benevolent children's home by the aunties. The orphan girls at the Benevolent Children's Bureau learned some practical skills to support themselves. And upon turning 13, they might even be assigned to a good family. I'm not yet of age and have no one in the capital to protect me. In desperation, I grabbed Sister Rongyen's hand and asked her what I should do. Rongyen froze for a moment, then frowned and brushed my hand away. Better to rely on yourself than others. Have you completely forgotten what I've taught you all this time? She stepped into the Ning family's sedan chair without looking back. Fortunately, I still had the 10 taels of silver bestowed by Madame Ning. With the silver in hand, I begged Aunt Ju from the butcher shop, who had always looked after me, to help me rent a small house on the outskirts of the capital. If carefully managed, 10 taels of silver could last several years. I could go to Lanchi weaving workshop, pay some money, start as an apprentice to refine my needlework, and once I've mastered the craft, I could support myself as an embroiderer. But just as Aunt Ju told me everything was settled and only the payment remained, my sister Rongyen arrived. She looked at me, her face as cold as frost. Rongyen clapped her hands, and her personal maid Kuya stepped forward to snatch the silver from my arms. I shielded the silver, only to be shoved to the ground by Kuya. Rongyen looked down at me from her superior position. I've always taught you that the poor shouldn't accept condescending alms. You did save my elder brother's life. But how could you presume upon that merit? How dare you pocket my mother's reward? Indeed, by then Rongyen had already become Ningyen, calling herself the eldest young mistress of the Ning household. But this was given to me by Madame Ning. I raised my head and argued desperately. She seemed exasperated by my failure to meet expectations. Saving someone was merely lifting a hand to help. Your greed like this truly disgraces our family's reputation. My silver was confiscated by them. The butcher's wife couldn't bear to watch and pleaded with her to show mercy and leave me a way to survive. Rongyang simply said indifferently, "A person must have integrity. I am cultivating her character." Without any silver to rely on, I ended up wandering the streets. I was nearly bullied to death. Inside the room, Rongyang looked at the dirt on my face with satisfaction. "Now, it's seamless." I snapped out of my daze and asked her with a smile, "Sister, do you really think smearing mud all over my face will please Madame Ning?" Rongyang froze for a moment before retorting indignantly, "I'm your own sister, would I ever harm you?" Seeing my silence, she added guiltily, "Just do as I say later, and I guarantee Madame Ning will take pity on you." Auntie Song from the orphanage knocked on the door, announcing that Madame Ning had arrived and was already waiting in the main hall. I didn't miss the fleeting joy that flashed between Rongyang's brows. In my past life, I always believed she was genuinely happy for me being adopted by the Ning family. Now that I think about it, I was truly foolish. Clutching my stomach with a frown, I said, "Sister, you go ahead first. My stomach hurts a bit, I need to use the outhouse." Rongyang wore a doubtful expression on her face, but eager to curry favor with Madame Ning, she hurriedly instructed me to emphasize the hardships and sorrows I endured at the orphanage when meeting Madame Ning later. I nodded, then watched as she lifted the hem of her skirt and eagerly rushed out the door. A quarter of an hour later, I made my way to the main hall. Madame Ning sat in the seat of honor. Meanwhile, her elder sister Rongyen was pouring tea for her. Rongyen turned her head and caught sight of me. A flicker of panic crossed her face, and the teacup in her hand nearly slipped, for I had already washed my face clean and changed into a neat dress. She took a deep breath, unable to make a scene then and there. But her eyes held a faint reproach as she looked at me. Lady Ning on the main seat possessed delicate features and dignified beauty. She did not accept Rongyang's teacup, but instead rose from her chair and walked up to me. "Xiao Yu, is it? Why have you come so late?" After young Master Ning was rescued back then, he had asked for my name, saying he would surely visit someday to express his gratitude. I answered truthfully, saying only that I lived at the orphanage and there was no need for nobility to trouble themselves with a visit. In my past life, even when mistakenly believing I had schemed against her, Madame Ning never reproached me harshly with words and even rewarded me with 10 taels of silver. Recalling this, I smiled and explained, I accidentally soiled my clothes earlier. Hearing that the Ning family comes from a scholarly lineage, I thought it improper to meet Madame in such disarray. So I changed into clean garments. Madame Ning didn't mind my tardiness, merely looking at me with maternal kindness. That day during the spring outing, my son Hui became momentarily entranced by the lotus blossoms on the lake and accidentally fell into the water. Had you not intervened to save him, my husband and I could scarcely have borne the consequences. The young master of the Ning household wouldn't have fallen into the water at all, it was his own doing. Having forbidden servants from accompanying him while admiring lotuses in a secluded spot, thus causing the accident, I said earnestly, to be honest, I can't swim either. I just happened to find bamboo poles by the shore and picked them up, then accidentally rescued your young master by sheer luck. Madame Ning should have young Master Ning be more careful in the future. It's best not to leave him unattended. What an honest child. Madame Ning nodded, then suddenly frowned. Why are you so thin and small? Your sister just mentioned you've suffered greatly. Not at all. I shook my head. Aunt Song treats us extremely well. We get new clothes during festivals, and I've never missed a meal. Rongyang widened her eyes. How could you speak so recklessly, sister? She stopped mid-sentence when she caught sight of Aunt Song approaching and swallowed her words. Aunt Song was just entering with several sets of new clothes in her arms. Having apparently overheard my words, she wore a gratified expression. Madam is most kind-hearted. After sending word to the orphanage the day before yesterday, I also prepared several sets of clean new clothes for Ayu. Since Madam has no daughters of her own, I feared the household might not have time to prepare. Madame Ning nodded approvingly. You're very thoughtful, Aunt Song. Mr. and Mrs. Ning shared a deep marital bond, but Mrs. Ning had suffered lasting damage during the birth of their son, leaving them unable to have more children. They longed for a daughter to complete their family with both son and daughter. In my past life, it was young Master Ning who returned home and reported this matter that planted the idea of adoption in the Ning couple's hearts. Soon after, Mrs. Ning carefully broached the subject, measuring her words as she asked if I would be willing to become their daughter. I nodded and said I would. Madame Ning repeatedly praised me warmly, holding my hand affectionately, and even instructed her maidservant to give Aunt Song a silver reward, saying she had raised me well. Madame Ning held my hand as the group prepared to leave. Suddenly, Rongyan rushed to the front and blocked Madame Ning's path. Madame Ning looked displeased. What is the meaning of this? Rongyang's eyes reddened, tears welling up in their depths. Madame Ning, please hear me out. Rong Yu and I are blood sisters who never imagined would be parted. On her deathbed, our mother grasped my hand and made me swear to always care for my younger sister. Now that my sister has such bright prospects ahead, I'm truly overjoyed for her. In my heart, I long to witness her growth with my own eyes, that our parents' spirits may rest peacefully. With these words, she knelt and kowtowed, her plea uttered with heartbreaking sincerity. Rongyan doesn't wish to trouble Madam, but my heart truly cannot bear parting from my younger sister. Even if I must serve as a lowly maid in your household, I would rather not be separated from her. She was certain Madame Ning wouldn't actually make her serve as a maid. I sneered inwardly. In our past life, when she saw me kneeling to thank Madame Ning for her kindness, Rongyan had shown nothing but contempt. Yet wasn't the behavior she displayed now precisely what she had most despised? Madame Ning wore a troubled expression. Rong Yang had done no life-saving favor for the Ning family's young master. Master Ning himself was incorruptibly honest. Her decision to adopt me had been made after careful discussion with him. To suddenly take in another person would surely be difficult for Madame Ning to decide on the spot. Xiao Yu, what do you think? Madame Ning turned to ask me. Seeing this, Rong Yang fixed me with an imploring gaze. She knew full well that whenever she looked at me like that, I could never bear to refuse her, and as long as I spoke up, even if it pained Madame Ning, she would reluctantly agree to adopt Rong Yang as well. Sister has always taught me that even when seeking adoption, one must not lose dignity. Rong Yang's face turned pale. When did I ever say such words? I paid her no further mind and bowed respectfully to Madame Ning. My sister possesses noble character and enjoys gardening in her leisure time. If your residence has a conservatory, perhaps it could be entrusted to her care. Madame Ning suddenly breathed a sigh of relief, finding herself an honorable way out. Very well. Rong Yan looked at Madame Ning in disbelief, her eyes brimming with grievance as she finally replied, yes. When leaving the orphanage, Rong Yan attempted to follow me onto the carriage but was pulled back by Steward Zhao with a frown. How could a maidservant ride alongside the mistress and young miss? The flower room of the Ning mansion, the place I knew best in my past life. Sister Rong Yan said it took her tremendous effort to secure this favor for me. It was the third day I had lost my reward money, wandered the streets, and gone hungry when torrential rain poured down in the capital. Driven under the eaves by a drunken libertine reeking of alcohol, he lunged at me, tearing at my clothes with frenzied eyes. I cried out loudly for help, but no one paid me any attention. Pedestrians either took shelter from the rain or watched for amusement, yet not a single soul spoke up for me. In the imperial city, beneath the sun of heaven's feet, seeking justice is a privilege reserved for the noble. Only the grievances of nobles count as grievances. The beggar's grievance is simply his own misfortune. Struggling, I grabbed half a roof tile beside me and hurled it with all my might at the man's head. Some pampered young master from who knows where, his injury sobered him considerably. Seeing the crowd pointing fingers, he spat out, "Just you wait," before covering his face and fleeing through the gathering. Yet Rong Yang emerged gracefully from the crowd, her maid Quia following closely behind while holding up an umbrella for her. I tugged at her sleeve, tears streaming down my face in grievance. "Sister, you've finally come for me." Yet Rong Yang remained silent until I looked up and saw her frowning at the spot on her sleeve where I'd grabbed it, now stained with muddy water. My hand froze mid-air before finally letting go, noticing the blood-stained tile shard in my hand. Rong Yang bit her lip and gasped, "How could you hurt someone?" Quia at her side exclaimed Ayo, taking out a handkerchief to carefully wipe her face. I thought Rong Yan missed me, but unexpectedly, she came to demand an explanation. She shook her damp silk sleeve impatiently, unable to wipe it clean. Quia looked at her puzzled. "Miss, why must you venture out in this heavy rain?" She sighed faintly. "After all, Rong Yu is my sister." Rong Yang turned her gaze to me again, her eyes now filled with a chilling coldness. 3 days have passed. Rong Yu, do you admit your mistake? What? I looked at her, my expression blank with confusion. The onlookers sneered, having witnessed the disgraceful scene moments ago, and began whispering among themselves, "That beggar must have done something wrong. That's the carriage of Grand Scholar Ning's residence. The daughter recently adopted by Lady Ning turns out to be so beautiful." Everyone praised her kind heart for showing mercy to a beggar. Rong Yang smiled faintly, offering no defense as she stepped closer to me in her delicate embroidered shoes. Repeated admonitions yield no reform, proof of a vile character. Her personal maid cast a contemptuous glance. Playing the righteous saint while pocketing rewards in secret, coupled with boorish conduct and violent assaults, such behavior wouldn't be worth stooping to, even for a lowly maid like myself. I don't understand. I took the reward money just wanting shelter. How does that make me shameless? When harassed by that libertine, I merely fought back, yet I'm called uncouth. Adopting her elder sister's authoritative tone, she pouted. "I'll ask one last time, do you admit your wrongdoing?" Quia tilted her umbrella, letting rainwater cascade down its surface onto me. My head was spinning, my vision blurred by the rain. I hung my head shamefully. I was wrong. Rongyang lowered her voice deliberately. After all, Rongyu is my sister. As her elder sister, I can't ignore her mistakes. Mother mentioned the other day that the mansion's flower room is short-handed, and father treasures those precious orchids dearly. Let her go to the Ning family's flower room afterwards. I was assigned to the flower room, but Rongyang came alone to find me late at night. She fed me the medicinal broth, and seeing that I ignored her, she wept silently by herself. Sister went through great pains to persuade father and mother so she could keep you by her side and look after you. That's why she arranged work for you in the flower room. She lamented her hardships of living under someone else's roof, saying that Quia was also sent by Madame Ning to keep watch over her. Every word and action of hers was reported back to Madame Ning, which was why she had no choice but to act that way in front of outsiders. Understanding her difficulties, I forced a smile to comfort her. Being able to work in the flower room is already very good, living a second life. I finally realized how easy it was to arrange someone into the flower room. At dusk, Rongyang came looking for me. She glanced around. The Ning residents had arranged for her to stay in the western courtyard meant for servants, its furnishings far inferior to my own autumn forest pavilion. Without waiting for an invitation, Rongyang pushed open the door, her eyes brimming with unconcealed envy as she took in the surroundings. She picked up the tea from my table and drank it, moistening her throat before preemptively scolding me. How can you ask me to serve as a maid in the flower room before Madame Ning when we're sisters? I smiled, the poor refuse arms given contemptuously. These are words you often say, sister. I thought you always prided yourself on integrity and wouldn't accept favors undeserved. She choked on her words, looking at me with exasperation. What a blockhead. While the principle stands, you must also remember your place and cherish our sisterly bond. Remember my place. I rose to my feet, a mocking smile playing on my lips. Sister, you're mistaken. My current status is as Madame Ning's daughter, the eldest young lady of the Ning household. Since Madame Ning neither adopted you nor appointed you as my personal maid, you shouldn't be here at this hour. Shock flashed in her eyes as her trembling finger pointed accusingly at me. How dare you? I raised my voice toward Zhu Guo, the hesitant maid lingering uncertainly at the doorway. Zhu Guo, escort her back to the western courtyard. The adorable little maid at the door, having received her orders, replied cheerfully, yes. Rongyang was escorted out by Zhu Guo, who also warned that if she dared to speak insolently again, she would report her to the master and mistress for punishment. Having just entered the Ning household, Rongyang dared not make trouble and had no choice but to swallow her grievances, slinking away in defeat. The next day, I was awakened by a clamor of noisy arguments outside my room. Pushing open the door, the maidservant standing in the courtyard was all too familiar. It was Quia, the personal maid of her elder sister Rongyan from her past life. Quia stood with arms akimbo, scolding, I've only been ill for 2 days, and now a little chit like you thinks she can rule the autumn forest courtyard. Zhu Guo crouched on the ground, her eyes rimmed red, her arms bruised purple and blue from pinches. Those who fawn on the powerful and abandon the weak never change. No matter the circumstances, in my memory, Quia was Madame Ning's capable maid in my past life. After Rongyang became the Ning family's young miss, Madame Ning assigned Quia to serve her. Young miss saved the young master's life. How dare that wretched servant barge into Cholin garden? Naturally, this matter must be reported to the master and madam. I remained non-committal upon hearing this, yet she was certain her words wouldn't anger me, and continued. It's not that this servant speaks out of turn, but that Rongyan who entered the manor with the young miss, with her fox-like seductive looks, seems like she won't be well behaved. She flattered me with a smile. The young mistress's appearance is truly elegant and dignified. I looked at her with a faint smile. Some people are born wicked, it's just that our positions have reversed, and now she's bad-mouthing Rongyen to curry favor with me, seeing my silence. Kuya called in several maids from outside and informed me that the madam had sent hairpins, dresses, and decorative items for my chambers. The Ning household was indeed modestly circumstanced. Their decorative pieces couldn't be called luxurious, but they excelled in refined elegance. I opened one of the jewelry boxes, took out a pair of jade earrings, dangled them before Kuya's eyes, then held them up against her emerald green dress for comparison. These earrings are quite nice. Kuya thought I meant to reward her with them and beamed with delight. After a moment's contemplation, I said, "Deliver this to Rongyen for me, and tell her I appreciate her hard work tending to the flower garden." Her face immediately fell. Why should Miss bother with a mere servant? Seeing my expression darken, she reluctantly complied. "Yes, I'll make sure to relay every word exactly to Rongyen. If you handle this well, I'll ask mother to transfer you to elder brother's courtyard." Hearing this, Kuya was overjoyed. Watching Kuya's skipping figure disappear into the distance, I smiled inwardly. Being by young Master Ning's side might not be the blessing she imagined. Though young Master Ning treated people kindly, he never allowed maidservants to attend to his personal needs. His greatest passion in life was studying historical texts and classical works. Even in my past life, I could never understand this young Master Ning. I instructed Zhuge to handle a matter for me while I went to find my mother. After chatting for a while, Madame Ning left the estate to have tea with the wife of the left censor-in-chief. Meanwhile, I brought back some medicine for bruises and gave it to Zhuge. Zhuge reported back to me that she had followed Kuya to the flower room. Just as expected, Kuya relayed my words verbatim to Rongyen, but not without embellishment. She exaggerated the pair of ear pendants as tokens of my favor, practically announcing to everyone in the flower room that she was acting on my behalf and enjoyed the high regard of Miss Ning. Studying my expression cautiously, Zhuge said, "Sister Rongyen accepted the jade pendants with a rather indifferent look. She only remarked casually that your current standing, miss, was entirely due to her guidance." Seeing me silently applying the ointment bit by bit to her arm, Zhuge gritted her teeth, grimacing in pain. I found it amusing inwardly. The position I'm in today is indeed because of her. Kuya proved capable, so I had Zhuge wait for Madame Ning's return to report, simply saying Kuya had done well and recommending her transfer to young Master Ning's courtyard. Within just half a day, word came that trouble had broken out in the flower room. Rumor has it that Rongyen destroyed Master Ning's extremely precious dendrobium orchid. It was meant to be Ning Manner's birthday gift for the imperial consort next month. I brought some vermilion berries to enjoy the spectacle. From afar, I could see Rongyen being forced to kneel on broken porcelain shards by several sturdy maidservants. Steward Ding publicly reprimanded her for destroying the master's precious orchid plants. Rongyen stiffened her neck and pouted her lips. Defending herself, "It was you who insisted on consulting me." The matron pressed down hard on her shoulders, broken porcelain shards piercing her flesh as Rongyen's face contorted in pain. "My sister won't stand idly by. How dare a lowly servant like you punish the elder sister of the Ning family's eldest young miss?" She had just received the earrings I sent her through Kuya today, thinking it was my apology for last night's ingratitude. Wearing those earrings and hearing Kuya's public message, she became so elated she didn't know what to do with herself. The flower garden in the estate has always been managed by Steward Ding. The words I had Kuya deliver today made Steward Ding mistakenly think I intended to promote Rongyen. He feared his position might be threatened. In truth, Rongyen knows nothing about cultivating plants, let alone distinguishing between varieties of orchids. Steward Ding set a trap by having a maid in the garden claim a potted plant was dying and asking her what to do. Seeing the pot of dendrobium orchids, Rongyen mistook them for mere weeds and casually suggested transplanting them to a larger pot to save them. That was a birthday gift for Her Majesty the Imperial Consort. You wouldn't have enough lives to pay for it. Steward Ding shouted threats, saying that when the master and mistress returned to the manor, he would report to them and have Rong Yang expelled from the household. Spotting me approaching with the vermilion fruit, Rong Yang's eyes lit up, her voice tinged with grievance. Little sister, they're slandering me like this. I truly don't know what to say anymore. When Steward Ding turned and saw me, his face stiffened, beads of sweat rolled down his forehead, yet he took a step forward. Miss, if I may explain, this orchid is extremely rare, with 7 or 8 pairs of eyes watching from behind. He intended to punish Rongyan today. If I retreated after just a few words, how could I maintain authority in the flower room hereafter? But if I spoke up to plead for Rongyan and Steward Ding refused to yield, he would offend me. Steward Ding steeled himself and continued, Young miss, it's best you don't inquire further about this matter. I nodded slightly. Steward Ding, I'm truly inexperienced in matters concerning the manor's greenhouse. You should make the decision yourself. Having seen enough of the spectacle, I turned and left. He looked utterly astonished, never expecting me to be so amenable to advice. As I departed, I heard Steward Ding's voice rise several pitches behind me. Beat him, even from afar. Rong Yang's screams could still be heard. Rong Yu, are you just going to stand there and watch your own sister have her legs crippled? You heartless, ungrateful. Before she could finish, her mouth was gagged, leaving only muffled whimpers of pain. The consort's birthday gift was gone. Master Ning learned of this and felt somewhat helpless. He had always been lenient with the servants in his household. After weighing his options, perhaps considering that Rongyan and I were, after all, sisters, he merely docked 3 months' wages from her. After her wounds were bandaged, Rongyan limped her way to Cholin Garden under the cover of night to find me. Just as Zhuguo was tidying up the book chest, Master Ning invited a tutor to the residence. Stating that he himself would also set aside time to teach me, he further ordered young Master Ning, who already held a position as assistant minister of the Court of State Ceremonial, to attend the lessons as well. It all began when the noble consort remarked jokingly that all the court officials were men molded from mud, devoid of even a hint of elegance. The imperial consort's mischief was indulged by His Majesty, who opened up some official positions in the 6 ministries for female officials. Come next spring, officials of the 6th rank and above would have the privilege to recommend women to participate in special examinations. Now that I'm the daughter of Academician Ning, he summoned me to his study and earnestly instructed me, saying that in recommending talents, one should not avoid favoring relatives. With such an opportunity at hand, I must strive for excellence. But if next year I couldn't even pass his evaluation, then I should give up. Rong Yang saw Zhuguo tidying up the books and imperiously ordered her to leave. Zhuguo looked at me, and I nodded in agreement. Soon, only Rong Yang and I remained in the room. Rong Yang sat down and complained indignantly. If you just punished that steward publicly today, no one would dare bully me again. I looked her up and down, barely suppressing a laugh at her current appearance, struggling to keep a straight face. I responded in the same tone she'd used in her past life. Steward Ding was only looking out for your best interests. You merely lost 3 months' wages, while Steward Ding bore the full brunt of father's wrath for failing to cultivate those prized flowers. Rongyan widened her eyes indignantly. You saw how I was humiliated by a mere servant, stripped of all dignity. I'm your own sister, how am I supposed to face others if this gets out? I blinked innocently. But dear sister, weren't you the one who begged to come work as a servant in the Ning household? She cried out involuntarily. Rong Yu, when did you become like this? After a moment of silence, I replied helplessly. Today I heard that elder sister was punished, so I rushed over too, but as you saw, living under someone else's roof is like walking on thin ice to begin with. Moreover, those orchids were precious, and Steward Ding had both reason and evidence. I truly had no choice. Rong Yang stared at me fixedly, her face alternating between red and pale. After a long standoff, she finally left in a huff. In my past life, through Rong Yang's arrangements, I had entered the Ning family's flower room to work, with monthly silver to earn and meals provided. I thought this was the good future my elder sister had painstakingly arranged for me, so I worked extremely hard and was willing to humbly learn from everyone about the skills of cultivating flowers and trees. Until Rongyan came to the greenhouse to see me, everything changed. The maids in the greenhouse fawned over her with excessive flattery. Though they're sisters, truly one is clouds while the other is mud, the young miss is graceful and dignified. Not like that Rong Yu, one look and you can tell she's a simpleton. I knelt on the ground with the maidservants. Rong Yang basked in these flatteries, yet her expression remained unchanged. Later, she dismissed all the maidservants, saying she wanted to share some intimate words with me, yet she kept me kneeling without letting me rise. My knees ached from kneeling, while Steward Ding stood nearby, gloating in his eyes. She sipped her tea, glanced at Steward Ding, and remarked casually, "Don't let them speak such words again." Steward Ding hastily agreed. After leaving those words behind, Rong Yang departed. The supervisor Ding of the flower room had been trembling with fear, worried about offending the newly arrived Miss Ning of the Ning family, and had instructed them not to bully me. I had also thought Rong Yang came over because she was concerned I might be mistreated in the flower room, but by evening, Rong Yang's personal maid Quia arrived, sealing silver coins as rewards for them. Every maid who praised Rong Yang today received a reward. The steward Ding of the greenhouse also received benefits. Afterward, they secretly speculated about their master's intentions and intensified their oppression against me, assigning me the hardest and most exhausting tasks. "Sister, you should experience this taste as well." Rong Yang suffered punishment and seemed to behave herself for a few days. 2 days later, Lady Ning received an invitation from Prince Chenping for a banquet at Plum Creek Villa, with my name included as well. Currently, the Crown Prince and the Second Prince are fiercely competing for power in court. Your father refuses to take sides and strives to maintain a low profile. I originally intended to decline this banquet, but if you find it intriguing, you could go and take a look. I shook my head. Prince Chenping was Rong Yang's fiancé in my past life, not someone easy to deal with. I told Lady Ning that right now. I only wanted to focus on preparing intensively for next year's imperial examinations and had no mind for anything else. Madam Ning was pleased. These past 2 days, I've been feeling vaguely uneasy. At dinner with Master Ning and Madam Ning in the evening, my right eye twitched even more intensely. Noticing my lack of enthusiasm, Madam Ning looked at me with concern. "But is the food not to your liking? Mother, why have the dishes these past 2 days been all vegetarian?" Suppressing the unease in my heart, I asked curiously. Master Ning and Madam Ning set down their chopsticks and looked at me in surprise. Master Ning's expression darkened as he pondered for a long moment. "Your willingness to pursue knowledge pleases me. But you must not forget the virtues of filial piety and fraternal duty." Seeing my continued confusion, Master Ning frowned. "Though you've entered the Ning household now, you mustn't forget the death anniversary of your birth mother." Alarm bells rang in my mind. The household had been vegetarian for 3 consecutive days, all because of this fabricated death anniversary. I furrowed my brows. I don't know where father and mother heard this news, but my birth mother passed away on the 12th day of the 3rd month. Her death anniversary is still over 8 months away. Madam Ning exchanged glances with the master, then cleared her throat lightly. "That elder sister of yours from the flower room mentioned it yesterday. Could there be some misunderstanding?" I thought to myself with unease. Perhaps elder sister remembered the wrong date. Before we could finish our meal, someone burst into the manor. Outside, voices clamored chaotically. The courtyard guards had no time to report properly and could only follow the intruders inside, shouting their announcement, "Master, Madam, Prince Chenping. Before he could finish speaking, a burly man kicked him to the ground. Madam Ning pushed me behind the screen, warning me not to come out no matter what happened. Several men burst into the hall, led by none other than Prince Chenping. Master Ning raised his hands in salute and inquired about the purpose of Prince Chenping's sudden visit. King Chenping and several military officers drank themselves into a stupor at a tavern. In his drunken state, he demanded they bear witness as he went to Scholar Ning's residence to seek the hand of the Ning family's young lady. Upon hearing King Chenping's words, old Master Ning's face darkened immediately. This humble official has never had any dealings with King Chenping. To suddenly come seeking my daughter's hand is utterly incomprehensible. King Chenping laughed heartily and looked at old Master Ning. This prince recently hosted a banquet at Plum Creek Villa, where your daughter performed a dance. Having been deeply impressed, I've come sincerely to seek her hand. Absolute nonsense. Old Master Ning was clearly furious. Prince Chenping curled his lips. Lord Ning is upright and incorruptible, yet the daughter you've raised is quite passionate. Lord Ning raised his hand to interrupt him. I must ask Prince Chenping to restrain himself. My daughter has been raised in the inner chambers and has never attended any banquets in the capital. Prince Chenping raised an eyebrow and glanced sideways at the soft ceramic screen where I was hiding. His tone carried profound meaning. Yet Ning, you and I have already been intimate. The moment these words were spoken, an uproar erupted throughout the hall. Old Master Ning's eyes nearly burst from their sockets. What did you say? The military officers accompanying Prince Chenping all widened their eyes in shock. Hearing this, I stepped out from behind the screen. My view was suddenly blocked by someone. That person had a slender figure, and his voice was cold as ice. Spreading baseless rumors to tarnish my sister's reputation. Does young Master Ning intend to fight with this prince? Prince Chenping's tone was mocking. I stood frozen in place, watching my usually aloof and refined elder brother roll up his sleeves. Casting aside all pretense of gentility, I tugged at his sleeve, and when he turned around, his handsome face froze momentarily, his dark eyes filled with complexity. I shook my head lightly, released my grip, and hurried forward to curtsy respectfully before Prince Chenping. Raising my face, I said, "This humble servant is Zhuge, Miss Ning's personal maid." Though Prince Chenping's charm and elegance are renowned throughout the capital, if your highness were to mistake another lady for my mistress, wouldn't it be improper to tarnish my young lady's reputation? Prince Chenping froze, clicking his tongue thoughtfully. Vermilion fruit, this maid of yours is quite charming. Why not accompany your mistress as part of her dowry when she enters the royal manor? He waved his hand and laughed heartily. Have your mistress come out. This prince naturally recognizes her. Master Ning scoffed mockingly. It seems Prince Chenping truly cannot recognize my daughter's appearance. Prince Chenping froze momentarily before realizing something was amiss. Master Ning beckoned me over and formally introduced me to the crowd. This is my daughter, Ningyu. The military officers who had come to the Ning residence exchanged glances. Many had only tagged along with Prince Chenping to save face. Though some were simply there for amusement, given the current situation, anyone with eyes could see that Prince Chenping had mistaken his target. Even if this matter were brought before His Majesty, Prince Chenping would still be in the wrong. Just now, with all the commotion outside, my mind remained perfectly clear as I pulled Zhuge aside to change her clothes in the side chamber. Lady Ning took over the conversation with a gentle voice. Forgive us for this spectacle. Ningyu hasn't left the manor these past few days. How could she have attended any banquet? The crowd pondered this thoughtfully, though some remained utterly confused. Prince Chenping insisted emphatically, the woman had indeed attended the banquet using an invitation sent by him to the Ning residence. If it wasn't the Ning family's young mistress, then who could it have been? At this moment, Zhuge emerged timidly from behind the screen and said, "It must be the one from the flower room." Madame Ning also immediately understood. The day before, Rong Yang had come to see her, claiming she wanted to leave the estate to pay respects to their birth mother. Kind-hearted Madame Ning had given her silver, saying she should also fulfill filial duties on her behalf. But Rong Yang had stolen the banquet invitation and gone to Plum Creek Villa instead. At the banquet, she performed a dance. The guests had only heard that academician Ning had recently adopted a daughter whom he treated as his own. No one in the capital had ever seen me. Everyone believed Rong Yang was the daughter of Grand Scholar Ning. Everything unfolded exactly as it had in my past life. From what I remembered, in my past life, Rong Yang had been adopted by the Ning family. Prince Chenping sent an invitation for his banquet, and Rong Yang insisted on attending. She received Prince Chenping's praise at the banquet. A single dance toppled the city. Rumors spread wildly in the capital that the daughter of Grand Scholar Ning and Prince Chenping fell in love at first sight during the feast, pledging their lives to each other. However, Master Ning disapproved of this marriage. Rong Yan knelt before the main courtyard gate, pleading desperately, "Your daughter truly admires Prince Chenping." Later, Master Ning relented. The emperor was most wary of close ties between military generals and civil officials in the court. Prince Chenping belonged to the second prince's faction, and many young officials in the court had once studied under Lord Ning. Since Lord Ning refused to take sides lightly, numerous civil officials remained hesitant. Prince Chenping was certain that if he could secure Lord Ning's allegiance, the second prince would command overwhelming support in the imperial court. Prince Chenping harbored schemes of his own. And since Rong Yang had come knocking on his door, he saw no reason to turn her away. By the time the group arrived, Rong Yang was watering the plants. Only when they drew near did she seem to notice them. Slowly raising her head from among the flowers, a begonia bloom rested against her cheek. Radiant as delicate blossoms mirrored in water, the crowd was momentarily stunned. Rong Yang, upon seeing Prince Chenping, couldn't contain her excitement and suddenly blushed crimson. "Your Highness." Prince Chenping's expression softened slightly. Old Master Ning stroked his beard. "So it turns out Prince Chenping has taken a fancy to this humble official's maid. Had your Highness wanted a servant girl, you could have simply asked directly. Why involve others unnecessarily?" This sentence struck another sore spot for Prince Chenping. Coming back to his senses, he said coldly, "We'll discuss this matter later, my prince," as Prince Chenping was about to leave. Rong Yang's heart-wrenching cry came from behind him. "Does your Highness truly not remember our moonlit vows? I too am the daughter of a respectable family. How could you treat me this way?" With a thud, she fell to her knees, tears glistening in her eyes, a sight pitiful enough to melt any heart. King Chenping's face darkened. Yet he couldn't lose his temper publicly. After all, he'd openly admitted to having intimate relations with the woman who attended the banquet that day. "This king will grant you due dignity." King Chenping clenched his teeth, forcing out these words before storming off with an angry flick of his sleeve. The military officers accompanying him to the Ning residence also wore awkward expressions, each offering apologies to Lord Ning one after another. The maidservant from the flower house impersonated the young lady of the Ning manor and climbed into Prince Chenping's bed. The illustrious Prince Chenping was fooled by a mere flower girl. This spectacle was truly marvelous. The farce has finally come to an end. I knew that Rong Yang alone couldn't possibly have stolen that invitation. Zhu Guo had inquired about it. Kuya had only just gone to young Master Ning's courtyard that very night when she was expelled for improper conduct. He didn't specify exactly what had happened, but Kuya was demoted to sweeping duties in the outer courtyard. Kuya harbored resentment toward me because of this. Convinced that I was the one who had sent her there and caused her such humiliation, that was why she and Rong Yang hit it off immediately and stole the invitation cards together. She had once been a capable maidservant under Madame Ning's service, so slipping into the main courtyard to steal a couple of unused invitation cards was all too easy for her. After all, if Rong Yang could climb up to the prince, she too could rise to prominence. Suddenly, I recalled a vague memory from my past life and discussed it with mother. Deciding to keep the matter under wraps for now, Kuya waited for several days without receiving any punishment and, thinking her misdeeds hadn't been discovered, grew smug with self-satisfaction. After this farce, Rong Yang began slacking off in her duties at the flower room, refusing to do any more work. Steward Ding scolded her, but she pouted and retorted, as the future mistress of the princely household. How could I possibly do such undignified work? The servants in the mansion flattered her, teasing that she was destined to become the princess consort. After all, Prince Chenping had publicly declared he would give Rongyan proper recognition. Time passed swiftly, and young Master Ning, following his father's wishes, attended lectures with me. He often tested me on behalf of his father. Whenever I answered fluently, his approving gaze would follow. You actually understands everything with just a hint. I smiled and shook my head. I knew full well my natural aptitude was dull, far from being the quick-witted person young Master Ning claimed me to be. It's just that I had studied these classics and poetry diligently in my past life. Back then, Rong Yang used sisterly affection as an excuse. After I finished tending the flower rooms, she'd have me accompany her to the tutor's lectures. I cherished this opportunity, rising before dawn every day to finish the tasks assigned by Steward Ding early, all for the sake of listening and learning more. One day, the tutor scolded Rongyan more than usual. Upon returning to her room, Rongyan threw down her bookcase. The sharp wooden corner struck my foot, bringing tears to my eyes from the pain. She turned her face away, pretending not to see, and still unsatisfied, smashed a teacup. Father must be losing his mind, making me study like this. Becoming a court official isn't that easy. Those noble girls have been learning since childhood. How can I, a latecomer, ever match them no matter how hard I try? Rong Yang found studying tedious, so she ordered the small kitchen to prepare an ever-changing variety of snacks and delicacies for her every day. While I swept and fetched water in the greenhouse, I also had to accompany her during lessons. Doing two jobs at once yet only receiving wages for one, all because she claimed it was sisterly affection and wanted to spend more time with me. In the evening, I stood beneath the veranda outside the greenhouse, dipping a twig into a bucket of water to review the previous day's lecture when young Master Ning happened to pass by. Noticing the water stains on the ground, he curled his lips slightly. Without a word, he picked up another twig, circled all my mistakes, and wrote the correct answers beside them. His gaze swept over the water stains on the floor as he praised my diligence. But this scene was spotted by Kuya, who secretly told Rongyan. Afterward, Rongyan no longer allowed me to accompany her to lectures, yet I still insisted on going. Every day, Rongyan would pack several food boxes to the brim with Osmanthus pastries, 8 treasure cakes, and all sorts of delicacies from the small kitchen. She cautioned me, these things meant to be eaten, even when stored in food containers, must never be placed on the ground, otherwise they'll be tainted with bad luck. Young Master Ning merely asked casually during the lecture, "Why not invite your younger sister to join us for the lesson?" Rong Yang acted as if she'd suffered unbearable humiliation, declaring indignantly, "There must be distinction between noble and base. With her background, how could she possibly deserve to sit in on lessons alongside my elder brother and me?" Holding the heavy food container, I stood beneath the scorching midday sun, but from that day on, the window in the main hall was always left half open. The teacher's voice could be heard clearly even from outside. I knew who had done this and was deeply moved. Rong Yang waited bitterly for some time, but Lord Chenping gave no response whatsoever. The maids in the flower room, whose flattery had once flowed freely, now spoke to her with veiled sarcasm. "Future princess consort, hurry and water the flowers." At last, driven to desperation, she went to beg Lady Ning to intervene on her behalf. Though furious at such disgraceful conduct occurring within her household, Lady Ning, remembering that Rongyan was, after all, my own elder sister, personally paid a visit to old Madam Chen's residence. But King Chenping had always valued the status of the Ning family's young lady. How could he possibly seek to marry a servant as his princess consort, later? With the intercession of his mother, Lady Chen, King Chenping relented and agreed to let Rong Yang enter the palace as a concubine. In early December, a palanquin from the royal palace entered the gates of the Ning residence. Yet Rong Yang insisted on seeing me before boarding the sedan chair. She arrived at Qiulin Garden wearing rose-red bridal attire. Rong Yang sat on a low stool inside the house, casting a disdainful glance at me as I continued studying. A concubine of the prince is naturally far more noble than some impoverished scholar's daughter. Don't you think, little sister? Without looking up, I replied. Then I congratulate elder sister on her brilliant future. She didn't know which word of mine had pricked her, but she snatched the book from my hands and tore it to shreds right before my eyes. I raised my eyes to look at her, my gaze revealing a trace of imperceptible pity. She would soon be entering her grave. I wouldn't argue with someone about to die. Seeing me remain silent, she grew even more smug. Could the Ning family ever give you such dignity? No matter how she provoked me, I responded with a smile. She said indignantly, from now on, we'll go our separate ways. We're no longer sisters, and my future prosperity will have nothing to do with you. It was hard for her to finally speak her mind. I nodded and said, as you wish, as the year drew to a close. It coincided with the birthday of the imperial consort in the palace. Everyone in the capital knew how much the emperor doted on her, so he specially held a palace banquet, allowing high-ranking officials to bring their female family members into the palace to celebrate. In his previous life, Master Ning was an incorruptible official who couldn't afford extravagant gifts, so he decided to present his treasured pot of dendrobium orchids as a congratulatory offering. Yet on the eve of the imperial consort's birthday banquet, that pot of precious orchids vanished without a trace. The sudden incident immediately cast suspicion upon Steward Ding as the first to be held accountable. The maids working in the flower room all trembled with fear, each fearing they might be implicated. Quia stepped forward and publicly testified that she had personally witnessed me stealing items from the greenhouse and leaving the estate, the cellar, the estate's gatekeeper, and I were brought face to face for confrontation. They had bribed witnesses. All evidence pointed squarely at me. Lady Ning still remembered my past act of saving the Ning heir's life, but declared such moral character unfit for their household, casting me out of the estate. Because of this, I became homeless. In the bitter cold of winter, I contracted consumption, and no employer would hire someone afflicted with this disease. Several days later, news came that the Ning family had been raided and executed, yet my sister Rongyan, thanks to Prince Chunping's intervention, remained completely unscathed by the affair. An old beggar who was familiar with the place overheard the conversations of the powerful nobles feasting at the Nongi Tower. At the imperial consort's birthday banquet, Grand Scholar Ning's congratulatory gift was a painting of orchids he had personally brushed. Prince Chenping remarked during the palace banquet that he wished to examine it closely, but when the young eunuch unrolled the scroll, an old letter fell out. That letter turned out to have been written by a traitorous minister who had rebelled 3 years prior, and that treacherous official was first exposed when Grand Academician Ning noticed suspicious signs. Failing to dissuade him, Ning chose with great sorrow to report the matter to His Majesty. Yet Grand Academician Ning still kept handwritten letters from that rebel, wherein poems subtly hinted that a wise bird should choose a worthy tree to perch upon. His Majesty flew into a towering rage. Prince Chenping added fuel to the fire by bluntly stating that the traitor and Grand Academician Ning had once been bosom friends. The imperial consort refused to believe it and gently advised His Majesty that since it was Minister Ning who had exposed the matter initially, he surely harbored no disloyal intentions. The emperor, who despised those traitors suspected of conspiring with foreign powers, remained unconvinced. Grand Scholar Ning found himself unable to voice his grievances, unable to bring himself to destroy his old friend's keepsakes. He had indeed deceived the sovereign. After the palace banquet, the entire Ning household was imprisoned and sentenced to execution in autumn. Rong Yang went to buy rouge and powder when she came across me begging on the street. At that time, she was unexpectedly accompanied by Quia. Seeing me disheveled and coughing incessantly, Rong Yang's eyes reddened. She wept, saying she had been forced against her will and coerced by others, that she had searched for me for many days, and even prepared 100 taels of silver for my treatment. By then, I was already gravely ill and refused to believe her. All I felt toward her was disappointment. Yet, considering her impending death, I sighed and told her what I had seen days earlier. Lord Chunping's mistress is already with child. He truly isn't worthy of being a good match. You'd best take care of yourself. I meant well by warning her, but she grabbed me and insisted I say it to Lord Chunping's face. He may be at fault, but sneaking this information to me shows your malicious intent. At the critical moment, Prince Chenping turned the tables, accusing me of attempting to seduce him and ordering his men to beat me to death with clubs. I knew I was about to die, but I didn't want to perish in excruciating pain, so I tearfully begged Rongyan, "Save me." She pouted her lips. "You knew he was a philanderer, yet you still threw yourself at him. Isn't that just asking for degradation? I was beaten to death with clubs, and my corpse was thrown into the bottom of the lake." Rong Yang reconciled with Prince Chenping and married him in grand style. In my dying moments, I heard her sweet voice say, "My lord and I have reconciled, just like our first meeting atop the wall, so unexpected, yet so passionate." Memories from my past life surfaced in my mind, revealing details I had previously overlooked. Prince Chenping relented before old Madame Chen and agreed to let Rong Yang enter the manor as a concubine, yet he delayed sending for her indefinitely. Yet she was suddenly taken in during the 12th lunar month, Zhuguo informed me. Our dispatched scouts reported that, based on their observations during this period, Rong Yang gave Quia a large sum of silver to seek an audience with the prince at the royal residence, only to be driven away by the guards. Later, Quia used silver to pass in a note, after which the steward of Prince Chunping's residence personally came out to invite Quia inside. Quia had once been a trusted confidant of Madame Ning, if that treasonous letter truly existed, having served Madame Ning for so long. Quia might have long been aware of it. In the previous life, could it have been her who informed Rong Yang of this matter? Otherwise, with the Ning family being raided and executed, and Rong Yang suddenly losing her maternal family's influence, why would Prince Chenping instead choose to protect her? The consort's birthday banquet arrived as scheduled. In this lifetime, that pot of dendrobium orchid had long been destroyed by Steward Ding through Rongyan's hands. When I entered the palace with Master Ning and Madame Ning, we happened to encounter Rongyan, whom Prince Chenping had left outside the palace gates. Her gaze at the Ning household members seemed venomous, yet unable to conceal her smugness. I stepped down from the carriage, hearing Rong Yang shout behind me, "Rong Yu, what goes around comes around. Have you ever considered your own fate after treating me this way?" I paid no heed and escorted Lady Ning into the palace together. During the palace banquet, it came time for the gift presentations. As in my previous life, Minister Ning presented Consort Gui with an orchid painting, praising her virtuous nature and noble character. King Chenping, emboldened by wine, clamored to examine it closely. The little eunuch holding the scroll trembled repeatedly, yet nothing shook loose. King Chenping immediately tore the scroll apart, claiming there was something amiss within, yet even as he turned that painting inside out, He found absolutely nothing. He murmured, "Impossible." Seeing the emperor's displeasure, Prince Chenping hurriedly apologized, claiming he had drunk too much and acted rashly. Madame Ning tightened her grip on my hand, and I gave her a reassuring glance. Lord Ning seemed to understand now. I knew that burning the painting meant as a congratulatory gift last night had displeased Lord Ning. They all thought I'd gone mad, but I simply apologized calmly. "Please have father prepare another one." The emperor was furious. In front of all the ministers and ladies, he harshly reprimanded Prince Chenping for ruining the imperial consort's mood and docked half a year's salary from him. Outside the palace gates, Rong Yang waited anxiously on tiptoe, until she saw Prince Chenping storming out through the palace gates in anger. She was about to step forward when Prince Chenping shoved her to the ground with a single push. Rong Yang, bewildered, her limpid eyes brimming with misty tears. Prince Chenping, however, showed no trace of pity as he glared at her fiercely. Dumb as a pig, the prince's carriage drove away, leaving Rong Yang behind. Finally abandoning all propriety, she chased after the carriage, weeping and wailing, crying out loudly, "Your Highness, Yang is wronged." After returning to the manor, Madame Ning made the decision to sell queer. This winter month, Rong Yang's letters were delivered one after another to the Ning residence, explicitly addressed to me. Between my studies, to lift my spirits, I opened and read one or two of them. Every word was filled with her heartfelt remorse and sincere repentance. Of course, there were also accounts of how Prince Chenping married Lady Kui, how the jealous Mistress Kui suppressed her beauty at every turn, and how she begged me to save her. I gathered them into a stack and had Zhuge burn them in the charcoal brazier. At least they provided some warmth. Winter passed and spring arrived. The next time I saw Rongyan was when the imperial consort summoned me. Outside the palace gates, someone was acting suspiciously, sneaking furtively behind my carriage. The moment I stepped down from the carriage, I saw a pair of blooded hands clutching at my skirt. I was startled. The owner of those hands had her face slashed beyond recognition, dressed in tatters like a madwoman. "Save me, I'm your own sister," she croaked hoarsely. I frowned. Rong Yang, in the distance, a noblewoman approached. Fanning herself with a round silk fan, I raised my eyes and smiled. "Miss Kui, no, I should address you as Princess Chenping now," she neither confirmed nor denied, casting a glance at the panic-stricken Rong Yang who was hiding behind me. "Does Miss Ning also presume to meddle in the household affairs of my princely residence?" Rong Yang clutched tightly at my sleeve. "She's my own blood sister, how could she not stand by me?" The princess consort of Chenping let out a cold laugh and ordered the matron behind her, "Such insolent nonsense, slap her mouth." I could feel Rong Yang trembling violently beside me. I whispered softly, "Stop." Rong Yang let out a relieved sigh, looking at me with moved eyes as hope kindled within them. Princess Chenping looked puzzled, silently questioning me with her gaze. I curled my lips slightly. "The palace gates are right before us. If you must fight, don't do it here." "Thank you for the reminder, Miss Ning." Princess Chenping smiled faintly. Rong Yang turned to look at me in disbelief, her eyes wide with fury. "Rong Yu, how could I have such a vicious-hearted sister like you?" She could barely stand, collapsing weakly to the ground. I bent down. "Haven't we long severed our sisterly bond?" She clutched at my sleeve. "Dear sister, I was wrong. I truly know I was wrong. I beg you, save your sister. Let go." She refused to release me, so I raised my hand, pulled out the golden hairpin from my hair, and swiftly drove it into her left palm, which was braced against the ground. Rong Yang's face twisted in agony as she let out a piercing scream. I leaned down and whispered softly, "I spared your life not because I forgave you, but because I know every day you live will be more painful than death." The princess consort of Chenping waved her hand, ordering attendants to drag her back. Truly, what goes around comes around. Retribution is never absent. Rong Yang would never know that the one who gave the Kui family a helping hand, the very force that propelled her to become Chen Ping Wang's principal wife, was none other than me. The Kui family had an early marriage arrangement with Prince Chenping, but after the eldest Kui daughter, who had entered the palace as a consort, passed away, the Kui family gradually declined. The second Kui daughter clung to the hope of marrying Prince Chenping, yearning for him until it made her ill. Yet Prince Chenping never mentioned the old betrothal, dismissing it as mere jest among elders. In her past life, Prince Chenping, fearing she might cause trouble, strung her and Rong Yang along with sweet nothings. The so-called pregnant mistress I saw wandering the streets was none other than the second Kui daughter. After the palace banquet, I had Zhuge deliver a message to Miss Kui. Zhuge departed, and the next day, Miss Kui entered the palace under the pretext of dreaming about her elder sister and wishing to reminisce with the noble consort, who had been close to the Kui family's eldest daughter during her lifetime. The noble consort adored the fragrant pear's tribute from Yongju and had a particular fondness for goose meat, which severely harmed her spleen and stomach, leaving her frail. It would take at least 10 more days before the imperial physicians diagnosed the cause. The noble consort invited Miss Kui to dine, and upon Miss Kui's kind reminder, she immediately consulted the imperial physicians, only to learn that roasted goose should never be consumed with fragrant pears. The noble consort was moved by Miss Kui's kindness. The next day, His Majesty issued an edict betrothing Princess Kui to Prince Chenping. I was just about to enter the palace gates, when someone called out to stop me. Another carriage slowly came to a halt before the palace gates, and a sinewy hand lifted the embroidered curtain. Inside the carriage, young Master Ning furrowed his brows and handed me a handkerchief. After all, we're paying respects to Her Highness the Imperial Consort. Some decorum is necessary. I didn't take it, but instead asked him with a smile, "Brother, seeing me like this, are you disappointed?" He pondered for a moment before replying, "A wise man doesn't stand beneath dangerous walls. That you can protect yourself only brings me comfort." I replied cheerfully, "Thank you, elder brother," then turned to leave. Yet Ning Hui called out to me once more. Lowering his gaze, he said softly, "Ayu, I'll be waiting here for you." I turned back to look at him, momentarily dazed, wondering if behind those calm black eyes lay emotions as tumultuous and hidden as my own. In past lives and this one, I may have felt stirrings of affection. But I know, perhaps Rongyu could, but Ningyu, never. There's another path I wish to walk, and I dare not gamble with these unforeseen trials and tribulations. I smiled gently at him. Brother need not wait for me. The noble consort will send someone to escort me out of the palace. Without waiting for his response, I turned away without hesitation. Becoming a palace official was my choice. I was already Ning Hui's nominal younger sister, and father and mother cherished me as their own daughter. Whatever lies behind those eyes will ultimately be rejected by the world. One should not be too greedy. I now have someone to cherish and something worth protecting. In the imperial garden, the noble consort raised a peony to her nose and remarked meaningfully, from the city tower where I stood admiring the view earlier, Minister Ning's carriage remained parked for an exceptionally long time. My heart trembled suddenly, yet my expression remained unchanged. Fraternal affection, the Ning household has treated this humble official with great kindness. Indeed, I am now the registrar of the Imperial Academy. Does Her Highness not regret it? I gazed at the flowers competing in splendor within the imperial garden and suddenly spoke. Though the noble consort's words seemed playful, they moved His Majesty to open an official path for women across the realm. What is there to regret? Regret becoming a woman trapped in this deep palace. The imperial consort scoffed. Her attendant softly chided, "Your Highness, mind your words." The imperial consort waved her hand dismissively, then suddenly smiled. This consort has regrets, but never remorse. Gazing at the garden full of flowers, her eyes shone with determination. When I chose to become His Majesty's consort and enjoy imperial luxuries, it was willingly that I walked this path. When one attains one kind of fulfillment, they shouldn't covet another, only then can the heart find peace. Yes, I pondered thoughtfully, grateful for her guidance, and suddenly realized Her Highness the noble consort possessed a heart of extraordinary wisdom. She reached out to pluck a flower from the imperial garden and adorned my hair with it. It was a gladiolus, symbolizing continuous advancement and rising step by step. Her Majesty the noble consort smiled and said she was tired, retiring to the warm chamber for a short rest. Before leaving, she looked me over and smiled with satisfaction. The imperial garden is picturesque. Why don't you enjoy the flowers a while before returning to your residence? The noble consort's gaze swept past the fleeting splendor as she murmured thoughtfully, casually recognizing the face of the east wind. Your road ahead, Ning Ching, stretches long indeed. I turned my head and watched the imperial consort's receding figure fade into the distance. When I turned back, my eyes were met with a garden brimming with radiant blossoms. Indeed, I still had a long, long road ahead of me. After hearing the first story above, what are your thoughts? Feel free to share your opinions in the comments section. Next, there is another similar story. Let's continue to see. I gave birth at the same time as my best friend Zhao Wanqing. She had a girl, and I had a boy. But just as the babies began wailing, a barrage of bullet comments floated before our eyes. Sigh. If only they knew neither of their children would live past their first birthday, how heartbroken would they be? Indeed, one child was pierced through the head with 12 steel needles by a grandmother who favored boys over girls and died in agony, while the other was poisoned by imperial decree ordered personally by an emperor who feared the Li family's military power. These two were truly born into the wrong families. But aren't these two best friends the most tragic of all? Not only were their children murdered, but they were both swindled out of their inheritances by scoundrel husbands. After death, they were even suppressed by Taoist priests, doomed to never reincarnate. Reading these bullet comments, my best friend and I both shuddered involuntarily. After exchanging glances, we swiftly swapped our children, seeing how swiftly Wanqing and I severed the umbilical cords and swapped babies. The barrage of comments froze momentarily, then instantly flooded with question marks. Am I seeing things? Why did they suddenly switch babies? Switching was the right move. The paranoid emperor already feared the Li family's military power. Now that Li Chaoyang has born a son, he'd definitely worry they'd kill him for the throne. That child wouldn't survive otherwise. Although the men they married were no good, at least this way both children's lives could be saved. Seeing this, Wanqing and I exchanged a covert glance. We both secretly breathed sighs of relief, because we all knew whether the other things mentioned in the bullet comments were true or false was another matter entirely. But the emperor's fear of the Li family holding substantial military power was absolutely real. At that moment, shouts came from outside the carriage. Your Highness. Immediately after, my personal maid Sihua lifted the carriage curtain with a panicked expression. Seeing that I had already given birth, Sihua immediately stepped forward to reach out and take the child. The first thing she did was check the baby's gender. Congratulations, Your Highness. It's a little princess, Sihua said with a smile. But at that moment, a line of text quickly scrolled across the bullet screen. Poor Li Chaoyang had no idea that Sihua, who grew up with him since childhood, was actually a spy sent by the emperor to monitor him. Her own son had been poisoned by Sihua. I couldn't help but clench my fists violently, my nails digging deep into my palms. I couldn't believe it. Sihua, who had grown up with me since childhood, was actually working for the emperor. Wanqing glanced at me worriedly, afraid I might impulsively confront Sihua, and gave me a slight shake of her head. I took a deep breath, suppressing the turbulent emotions surging within me, and said to Sihua, quickly wrap up the child so they don't catch cold. When will His Majesty arrive? Wanqing and I were nearing our due dates and shouldn't have been traveling at this time, but after the late emperor's passing, the new emperor, to demonstrate his filial piety, had specifically ordered all imperial consorts and officials of the fourth rank or above, along with their wives, to accompany the funeral procession, weeping all the way to the outskirts. Yet who could have anticipated that the carriage carrying Wanqing and me would suddenly lose control on our return journey? Fortunately, having practiced horseback riding and archery with my father since childhood, I managed to pull hard on the reins at the critical moment and plunged my dagger into the horse's neck, killing it and stopping the carriage from advancing further. But both Wanqing and I, frightened by the ordeal, had our waters break simultaneously, sending us into labor at the same time. Had it not been for the barrage of comments appearing, I would never have guessed that the mastermind behind this accident was the emperor. Yet with the barrage's reminder, I couldn't help but shudder in terror. I'm afraid the emperor deliberately let me leave the palace while heavily pregnant from the very beginning, all so that both mother and child would perish. Wanqing was implicated because of me. Before Sai Hua could answer me, another sound of galloping horses came from outside the carriage. Chaoyang, are you all right? I suddenly clenched the clothes beside me, gritting my teeth fiercely. Wanqing then tightly grasped my hand, silently offering comfort. I quickly composed myself and weakly called out, "Your Majesty, this concubine is unharmed." The emperor's voice finally relaxed. "That's good. Do you know how terrified I was when I saw the carriage out of control? Now that I see you're unharmed, I'm relieved," I replied in a somber tone. "Thank you for your Majesty's concern. It's just that this concubine failed to bear your Majesty a little prince, truly unworthy of the deep affection you've always shown me." The emperor's tone instantly became so light it seemed about to float away. "What does that matter? As long as it's Caoyang's child, I'll love them all the same. Upon our return, I shall confer upon our daughter the title of Pearl Princess. What do you think?" I immediately replied with delighted and moved tones, "Many thanks, Your Majesty." At this moment, Sihua came out carrying the swaddled child. Shortly afterward, Wanqing's husband Jiyu Hanzhong and her maidservant arrived. Wanqing, are you in the carriage?" Jiyu Hanzhong's voice trembled with alarm. Wanqing's grip on my hand suddenly tightened. Then she replied softly, "Husband, I'm here in the carriage. Don't worry about me. Take our child out first and care for them properly." At that moment, Wanqing's maid entered and carried out the hastily wrapped infant. Because the emperor had gotten a daughter while he himself had gotten a son, Jiyu Hanzhong dared not show the slightest hint of joy on his face. After hastily glancing at the child, he ordered someone to take the baby away. Wanqing and I were soon taken away by new carriages, each returning home. Before parting, we exchanged a gesture only we could understand. After returning to the palace, the emperor joyfully promoted me to imperial noble consort and bestowed upon our daughter the title of Princess Brightpearl, allowing me to peacefully undergo postpartum confinement. The child was then entrusted to the care of wet nurses. I had barely lain down to rest when Sihua brought me a bowl of nourishing soup. "Your Highness, you've lost vital energy after childbirth. Please drink this medicinal soup to restore your health." As soon as Sai Hua finished speaking, bullet comments flooded in warning me not to drink it. "Don't drink it no matter what. The soup contains saffron that promotes blood circulation. Drinking this right after childbirth could cause fatal hemorrhaging." This Sai Hua is truly wicked. If not for Li Chaoyang, her gambling-addicted father would have sold her to a brothel long ago. Li Chaoyang saved her, yet she schemes without hesitation. In the original plot, she tampered with Li Chaoyang's incense, gradually destroying her health. This led to Li Chaoyang dying of heartbreak after her son was poisoned, only to be suppressed posthumously in the imperial mausoleum's stone coffin by that despicable emperor. Hearing this, I fixed my gaze steadily on the medicine bowl in Sai Hua's hands. He said wearily, "Put it there for now, I'll drink it later." I'm craving some butterfly pastries you made yourself, go make some for me. Sai Hua didn't know I was already aware of her betrayal. Without suspicion, she immediately replied, "This servant will go at once." After Li Chaoyang left, I promptly dismissed all other palace maids from the bedchamber and summoned the covert guards my father had given me. Go check whether there's anything wrong with this bowl of medicinal decoction and the incense burning in the censer. The barrage comments were all surprised by my actions. Li Chaoyang actually has hidden guards by her side. That wasn't mentioned in the plot. This makes perfect sense. Li Chaoyang is General Qin's only treasure. After her mother died, the general would rather be called heirless than remarry for a son. How could such a man let his daughter enter the imperial harem, that den of wolves, without leaving her safeguards? Exactly. If not for those hidden guards protecting her, Li Chaoyang's child would have been stillborn long ago. And that damned emperor wouldn't have been able to take advantage of the old emperor's death to exile her from the palace, trying to kill both mother and child. I lowered my gaze to look at the empty medicine bowl, then after a moment had the palace maid come in to clear it away. At that moment, a barrage of comments flashed news from Wanqing's side. Holy shit, Zhao Wanqing, citing her injured body as inconvenient for serving. Promoted 2 maidservants to concubines for Jiyu Hanzhong in one go, and even took in Jiyu Hanzhong's green tea bitch cousin, who was secretly pregnant, as a secondary wife, but she demanded the child be raised by her, with no interference from the mother-in-law. Seeing Wanqing's approach, I immediately understood her intention. If she raises the child herself, the child won't grow close to the Jiyu family in the future, when both children grow up and return to our respective sides. My child won't show any special favoritism toward the Jiyu family. By the same token, Jiyu Hanzhong won't be able to exploit any debt of gratitude from raising the child. When she woke up, Sihua had already prepared the butterfly pastries. The emperor also came to my bedchamber, pretending to be affectionate as he watched our daughter. Seeing me awake, he immediately walked over with a smile. "Chaoyang, you're awake." I nodded with a gentle smile and ordered the palace maid to bring our daughter over for me to see. Seeing this, the emperor immediately said tenderly, "This child resembles you, so well behaved." Hearing this, I could only find it laughable. Resembles me. If he knew this wasn't my child, I wonder if he could still say such words. I truly look forward to the day he learns the truth. At that moment, Sai Hua approached with butterfly pastries in hand. "Your Majesty, the butterfly pastries are ready. Would you like to try some?" I glanced at her. "His Majesty is still here. Serve him first." Sai Hua paused her movements, then obediently lowered her gaze as she presented the tray before the emperor. The emperor waved his hand with a smile. "We don't care for sweets, take it to the noble consort instead." Sai Hua then brought the tray before me once more. I picked up a butterfly pastry. Just as it touched his lips, he suddenly crushed it, revealing a pained expression. "Your Majesty, this concubine suddenly feels unwell." The emperor swiftly glanced at Sihua. Sihua immediately set down the tray and looked at me anxiously. "Your Highness, what's wrong?" I stared fixedly at her. "I think I'm bleeding again." Sihua avoided my gaze with panic in her eyes. "What should we do now?" The emperor immediately shouted toward the outside. "Summon the imperial physician. Quickly summon the imperial physician." Soon, the imperial physician arrived. After taking my pulse, she immediately knelt before the emperor in panic. "Your Majesty, this is grave. The noble consort is suffering from postpartum hemorrhage." Hearing this, the emperor's face instantly darkened with fury. "What nonsense is this? How could Chaoyang suddenly have postpartum hemorrhage when she was perfectly fine?" The imperial physician immediately said, "Judging by Her Highness the imperial noble consort's pulse, she must have consumed something that promotes blood circulation." Hearing this, I immediately turned my gaze to Sihua. "Sihua, since my return, the only thing I've consumed is that tonic soup you handed me. What exactly is going on here?" Sihua immediately knelt down and cried out her innocence, but I knew the emperor would never let her stay. Someone had to take the blame for making me hemorrhage. Sure enough, the emperor soon ordered Sihua to be taken away for interrogation with a frosty expression. Then he commanded the imperial physician to save me. If I can't save Chaoyang, I'll hold you personally responsible. The imperial physician hastily nodded, then quickly wrote me a prescription and ordered someone to fetch and brew the medicine. Seeing this, the emperor hypocritically took my hand to comfort me. Don't be afraid, Chaoyang. I absolutely won't let anything happen to you. A cold laugh echoed in my heart, yet I feigned extreme weakness as I looked at him. This humble consort thanks your majesty, but should anything befall me, I beg your majesty to take good care of our daughter. Seeing my feeble appearance as I delivered what seemed like last words, the emperor immediately nodded with grave solemnity. Little did he know, the imperial physician who had just taken my pulse was actually my own trusted man. Thus, after drinking a bowl of medicinal brew, I quickly pretended to recover from the postpartum hemorrhage. Looking at the emperor's forced smile, I suppressed the hatred in my heart and said, Your Majesty, this concubine is tired. Only then did the emperor snap out of his thoughts. Then Chaoyang, you should rest well. I won't disturb you any further. With that, he stood up and left. Seeing my performance, the barrage of comments erupted in applause and cheers. Finally got rid of that traitor Sihua. As long as she remained by his side for even a day, Li Chaoyang would never be safe. If you ask me, now that Li Chaoyang has both a son and military power, he should just kill that damned emperor and rule from behind the curtain himself. What's the point of ruling from behind the curtain? If we're going to do it, let's go big. Why not ascend the throne herself as empress? Exactly. That damned emperor currently has few heirs. As long as no princes are born in the harem, Li Chaoyang's son will be the sole heir. Becoming empress might be difficult, but isn't ruling as regent dowager from behind the curtain easy enough? Seeing the barrage of comments, my heart couldn't help but pound violently. An unprecedented ambition suddenly surged wildly from within my chest. That's right, since the emperor has shown me no mercy, why shouldn't I repay him in kind and strike him down instead? Even if I can't become empress regnant, I can at least become empress dowager regent. Isn't this far better than spending a lifetime subservient to imperial authority? Since ancient times, this world's power has been firmly held in men's hands. Why shouldn't women be the ones wielding imperial power? The barrage comments made me feel for the first time that ruling the world might not be such an unattainable dream for me. Lying on the bed staring intently at the barrage, my mind raced as I calculated the odds of assassinating the emperor and seizing power. I quickly reached a conclusion: it's worth taking the risk. If father knew about the emperor harming me, he would surely stand by my side. As for the civil officials faction, Wanqing's father is the head of the Zhao family, a prestigious lineage of incorruptible scholars, with countless disciples under his name. Wanqing is also the apple of his eye, cherished like a pearl in his palm. With Wanqing's persuasion, plus the fact that my son was once nominally his grandson, I'm not afraid that Patriarch Zhao won't support my son's ascension. As long as we can secure his support, the civil official faction won't pose any threat. Now the most crucial question is how to eliminate that damned emperor without anyone noticing. Only when he's dead can I ascend the throne. Furthermore, there must absolutely not be a second prince born in the imperial harem. At this thought, a ruthless expression involuntarily crossed my face. The barrage of comments immediately erupted. Holy shit! What's Li Chaoyang thinking? That expression is pure murderous intent. Damn, that look in their eyes makes my back go cold, like they're ready to kill someone. Seeing this, I quickly composed myself. Next came the period of postpartum confinement. Since Sihua had dashed herself against the wall and died after being sent to the punishment bureau, I promoted a new palace maid and a young eunuch in her stead. These two had been discovered secretly forming a paired meals relationship and should have been executed by the Empress. I was the one who happened to pass by and saved them both. They were deeply grateful to me for this. When I was pregnant, someone had spilled oil and placed pebbles along paths I frequented. They were the ones who noticed and discreetly warned me, so I brought them both into my palace. The two individuals I promoted were both extremely excited and worked with great enthusiasm every day. Every task I assigned was executed flawlessly without exception. After completing my postpartum confinement, I requested the Emperor's permission for my father to enter the palace and meet me. Using our child's full moon celebration as the reason, the Emperor didn't consider a girl to pose any threat to his empire, so he readily agreed. When I told my father what the Emperor had done, he indeed flew into a rage. That bastard Zhengyi, he clearly promised me he would treat you well. I immediately handed him a cup of tea. Father, please calm your anger. Then I casually mentioned how Wanqing and I had switched babies. When father heard this, his eyes nearly popped out of his head. Chaoyang, have you lost your mind? I simply looked at him calmly. Father, if Zhengyi knew I'd given birth to a son, do you really think he'd let this child live peacefully? My father fell silent instantly. Then I continued, Father, since Zhengyi broke his promise first, we shouldn't just let others take advantage of us. Now that we have imperial princes and military power, daughter believes I'm also qualified to vie for that position. What do you think? My father's eyes widened even further. The next moment, he suddenly slammed the table. Let's do it. At worst, we'll face execution of the whole family anyway. It's just the two of us left now. What's there to fear? I nodded immediately. I knew it, my dad would definitely support me. Meanwhile, the barrage of comments exploded with exclamations of holy shit. Is this a coup d'etat? Is the tragic novel suddenly turning into a female empowerment revenge fantasy? Father and daughter are both decisive people. They don't hesitate to take action. Hey, don't even say it. With Li Caoyang's circumstances and what he's been through, not rebelling would practically be letting himself down. Rather than living timidly and cautiously under that damn Emperor's thumb, might as well overthrow him and become your own master. That's right, Li Caoyang. Don't chicken out, kick his ass. Seeing this, I couldn't help but curl my lips into a smile. I'm someone who takes advice seriously. Due to the late emperor's passing, the new emperor observed mourning for 3 months, substituting months for years, before eagerly stepping into the imperial harem to favor his concubines. But little did he know, during those 3 months, I'd secretly been giving him a taste of his own medicine by tampering with his meals, just waiting for him to enter the harem after the mourning period. Meanwhile, courtly social activities gradually resumed normality throughout the imperial court. I knew Wanqing must be missing her child terribly, so I summoned her to the palace under the pretext of relieving her boredom. When Wanqing arrived, I dismissed all attendants and let her hold the baby. Gazing at the delicate, adorable little girl, Wanqing's eyes turned red. Chaoyang, thank you for taking such good care of her. Hearing this, I shook my head. Mingzhu is just like you were as a child, exceptionally well behaved, never making a fuss. Honestly, she hardly requires much attention. Then, I turned my gaze to Wanqing. Wanqing, you've been immersed in poetry and literature since childhood, brimming with knowledge. Are you truly content to waste your life away in the inner quarters? You should understand my thoughts by now, right? Wanqing nodded after hearing my words, then she turned her gaze to our daughter. After a moment, she said to me, Chaoyang, whatever you want to do, just go ahead and do it. For so long this world has been ruled by men, it's high time we women took our turn. I refused to watch another baby girl be killed the moment she's born. I nodded emphatically. Meanwhile, the barrage of comments scrolled wildly across the screen. Well said. I'd gladly sacrifice my slave-driving boss's hairline if it helps you seize the throne. TSK. I take back what I said earlier about Zhao Wanqing being spineless trash. You've got way more guts than Jiyu Hanzhong. Truly worthy best friends, birds of a feather really do flock together. When her bestie rebels against her, she can really take a hit. Reading the barrage comments, Wanqing and I exchanged a knowing smile. Afterwards, I asked her about matters concerning her husband's family. Wanqing, just let me know if there's anything I need to help you with. As mentioned earlier in the bullet comments about Wanqing, after her daughter was brutally murdered, her mother-in-law used her inability to bear a son as an excuse for Jiyu Hanzhong to take in numerous concubines. As for Jiyu Hanzhong's cousin, she had always been kept outside the household and bore him a son. Naturally, Jiyu Hanzhong didn't want his son to grow up as an illegitimate child. So he allowed his mother to deliberately torment Wanqing, causing her to kneel in the rain for 2 hours until she caught a cold and passed away. Yet even after Wanqing's death, the Jiyu family did not let her be. During their marriage, Wanqing had occasionally offered Jiyu Hanzhong advice on his essays. Though he praised her outwardly for being well-read and reasonable, inwardly he was consumed with jealousy over her talent and took her revisions as a sign of contempt. Thus, behind the Zhao family's back, he secretly placed Wanqing's corpse beneath a bridge, ensuring she would be trampled by countless feet even in death. He even had Taoist priests suppress Wanqing's soul beneath the bridge, condemning her to eternal suffering.
I still can't produce a male heir. The emperor having no heir was indeed a matter that could shake the foundations of the state. Thus, the court officials could no longer prevent Zheng Yi from selecting concubines. Half a year later, a large group of selected women entered the imperial harem. Zheng Yi was eager to prove his fertility. As soon as the selected maidens entered the palace, he indiscriminately favored 3 of them in a single night. Yet after 2 months, none of the favored maidens showed any signs of pregnancy. Zheng Yi was both shocked and terrified. In the end, he even began to doubt his own fertility, thinking Zheng Yi wouldn't last much longer physically. At this point, I had someone hint to Zheng Yi that Mingzhu didn't resemble him. As expected, Zheng Yi began doubting Mingzhu's parentage. Following the imperial physician's suggestion, he secretly conducted a blood test with Mingzhu to verify kinship. The outcome was naturally incompatible. Zheng Yi immediately flew into such a rage that he overturned the table, grabbed his sword, and stormed toward the imperial study. Kicking open the door of the imperial study, Zheng Yi glared at me with bloodshot eyes, pointing his sword directly at me. Li Chaoyang, I've treated you well, how dare you cuckold me? Tell me, who is your lover, or I'll kill you. Hearing Zheng Yi's words, I feigned surprise and looked at him. Your Majesty, please calm your anger. This concubine is wronged. I swear to your Majesty, I have never betrayed you. If this were a lie, may your humble consort die a horrible death. Seeing my aggrieved expression and hearing such a dire oath, Zheng Yi hesitated as he looked at me. Then how do you explain that my blood doesn't mix with Mingzhu's? I stared at him in shock. What? That's impossible. Is there something wrong with the water? Medical texts state that if alum is placed in water, even unrelated individuals can have their blood fuse. Whereas if clear oil is added, even biological father and son won't mix. Hearing this, Zheng Yi froze in shock. Really? I immediately nodded. How would this concubine dare deceive your Majesty? If you don't believe me, you can ask the imperial physician. Only then did Zheng Yi lower his hand, then said coldly, fine, then we shall conduct the blood test anew. I nodded and gave the eunuch beside me a meaningful glance, just as we arrived at the inner palace. A palace maid came with urgent news. Your Majesty, Lady Chen has arrived with her child. I immediately said, please bring them in. Then I ordered fresh water to be prepared. Soon, Zheng Yi and Mingzhu performed the bloodline test once more. But this time, their blood still refused to mix. Seeing this, Zheng Yi immediately glared at me with darkened eyes. Li Chaoyang, do you have anything else to say? I wore an expression of utter disbelief. This can't be, Your Majesty. I truly haven't done anything to betray you. Mingzhu burst into terrified sobs at Zheng Yi's furious expression. At that very moment, Wanqing entered with their son. Upon entering, Wanqing immediately knelt and bowed respectfully to Zheng Yi. At this moment, my chief palace maid stared at my son in great astonishment and said, "Your Highness, this young master bears such a striking resemblance to His Majesty." Hearing this, Zheng Yi and I simultaneously turned our gaze toward our son. Then, I suddenly became agitated and fixed my eyes on Wanqing, asking, "Wanqing, after we gave birth back then, we both fell unconscious, didn't we?" Wanqing froze for a moment before nodding in agreement. "Yes." At this moment, I turned my gaze back to Zheng Yi. "Your Majesty, I beg you to conduct a blood test between yourself and Wanqing's son. This concubine suspects that Sihua took advantage of Wanqing and I being unconscious to switch our children. After all, Sihua was already dead. She claimed it was her swapped child back then, but now there's no living proof." Zheng Yi stared fixedly at his son after hearing my words. He immediately ordered someone to prick his son's finger and drip blood into a bowl. Before long, their blood had merged together seamlessly. Seeing this, Zheng Yi immediately rushed forward excitedly and grabbed his son's arm. "So it was you who was my son all along. I knew it was impossible for me to not have a son. Ha 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 ha." Afterwards, just to be on the safe side, Zheng Yi conducted several blood tests again. Each time, their blood samples merged seamlessly. At this point, Zheng Yi was finally convinced this was indeed his son. He immediately acknowledged the boy's identity with great urgency and formally designated him as Crown Prince. Mingzhu was thus forced to return to the Jiyu family. The sudden transformation of a son into a daughter naturally displeased the Jiyu family. Under Wanqing's secret scheming, Jiyu Hanzhang's green tea cousin, in her attempt to frame one of the favored concubines, accidentally caused the loss of the child. As for the other concubine, she also gave birth to a daughter, which filled the Jiyu family with disdain. At the same time, the Jiyu family was filled with immense regret when their son was still with them. They hadn't taken the chance to get closer to him, foolishly missing the golden opportunity to earn favor with the future emperor. Yet they remained unaware that after Mingzhu returned to the Jiyu family, Wanqing would never give them another chance to survive. Moreover, their deaths would certainly not be swift or painless. After establishing the crown prince, Zheng Yi had no choice but to bow to overwhelming pressure and make me empress. At this moment, he finally realized that the imperial court was completely beyond his control. He began finding fault with me. He burst through the door while I was reviewing memorials. With icy eyes fixed on me, he said, "Li Chaoyang, the inner palace must not interfere in governance. What are you doing? Does the hen presume to herald the dawn? I'm not dead yet. Who gave you permission to interfere with state affairs and privately alter memorials? Guards, seize the empress and confine her to the cold palace." Hearing this, I merely gazed at him coldly. How laughable. My son has already been crowned as his heir apparent. How many more days does he think he has left to live? Soon, Zheng Yi realized something was wrong, because his words could no longer command the golden blade guards outside. In an instant, Zheng Yi's face turned as ugly as if he had swallowed a fly. He stared at me intently, his eyes betraying a trace of panic. "Did you replace my golden blade guards, Li Chaoyang? How dare you? Are you plotting treason?" Hearing this, I smiled faintly. "Why not?" Zheng Yi listened, then flew into such a rage that he coughed up a mouthful of black blood with a fut sound. Staring at the black blood he had just spat out, Zheng Yi's face showed an expression of utter disbelief. How could our blood be black? The barrage of comments immediately began mocking him. "With your black heart and lungs, isn't it normal for your blood to be black? Aho, are you going to rage yourself to death? Are we going to slay the dragon now? Pa, what kind of dragon is he? At best, he's a worm." Seeing this, I couldn't help but chuckle softly. What do you think? Truthfully, I knew from the start that I'd given birth to a son. Upon hearing this, Zheng Yi trembled as he pointed a shaking finger at me, then collapsed stiffly backward. I then deliberately cried out in feigned panic, "Someone come quickly, the emperor has collapsed." Summon the imperial physicians at once. Every physician from the imperial hospital was summoned. They took turns examining Zheng Yi's pulse. Then one after another, they shook their heads. "Your Majesty," the physician reported, "the emperor has indulged excessively in pleasures and exhausted his vital essence. I fear my skills are insufficient to reverse this." Upon hearing this, I could only mournfully wipe away non-existent tears. In that case, do your utmost, esteemed physicians, at my words. The imperial doctors visibly relaxed with relief. Zheng Yi, clinging to his last breath after being kept alive for 7 days, finally passed away. With Zheng Yi's death, his 4-year-old son ascended the throne as emperor. I naturally became the Empress Dowager, assuming regency behind the curtain. The moment I stepped into the imperial court, the barrage of comments flooded the screen again. Watching Li Chaoyang rise step by step to where she is today is absolutely exhilarating. Nothing beats a career-driven female protagonist. The only regret is that Li Chaoyang couldn't bring herself to kill her son. Alas, as long as this child remains, there will always be future troubles. After all, his flesh of her flesh that she carried for 10 months, it's understandable Li Chaoyang couldn't do it. Still, it leaves a thorn in one's throat. Rather than seeing that brat ascend the throne, I'd much prefer watching Li Chaoyang take the highest seat herself. This is why women can't accomplish great things. If you've already killed the emperor, why keep the son? How can you allow others to sleep soundly beside your bed? Even your own flesh and blood shouldn't be spared. If it were me, I'd have finished him off. Come on, aren't you all thinking too simply? If Li Chaoyang dares to proclaim herself emperor at this moment, don't you believe those ministers below would rather support her father to the throne than let her become empress? Rome wasn't built in a day. You're too impatient. Killing the young emperor now would be tantamount to telling everyone it was her doing. Meanwhile, I smiled as I looked at the frightened and listless young emperor sitting on the dragon throne. Turning my head, I signaled to the chief eunuch beside me to begin the court session. Understanding my glance, he immediately announced loudly, "Those with matters may present them. Those without may retire." 10 years later, with the help of the barrage comments, I managed state affairs with perfect order. But to make everyone willingly acknowledge me as their sovereign and have the world recognize me as their empress, this was far from enough. The barrage comments said that only by bringing more women into the center of power and forming a community of shared interests with them could my position become more secure. I wholeheartedly agreed. Therefore, in the first year of my regency behind the curtains, I secretly dispatched dozens of strong and highly skilled women overseas to search for high-yield crops like sweet potatoes and corn. As mentioned in the bullet comments, I also sent another female general skilled in leading troops to Japan, as suggested by the bullet comments, where she discovered vast silver mines, filling the national treasury to the brim. The bullet comments said that men love to claim credit that rightfully belongs to women. Thus, upon their successful return, I immediately ordered historians to record their achievements and compile them into the annals of history. At this time, the young emperor had also turned 15. The imperial clan, unwilling to give up, stepped forward and demanded that I return governance to the young emperor. Before I could even speak, the young emperor scrambled down from the dragon throne in panic. He publicly reprimanded his royal uncle. "Why are you trying to harm me, imperial uncle? Can't you bear to see me living well? Her Majesty rises earlier than roosters and retires later than dogs each day. After merely 3 days of keeping such hours, my heart aches and I can't stop yawning. You're practically asking for my life." With that, he directly removed the imperial crown from his head. "I think Her Majesty is far more suited to be emperor than I am. Let's have Her Majesty take the throne instead. I'm exhausted and want to go back to sleep." Then amidst the uproar, he departed while yawning. At this moment, Uncle Zhao suddenly stepped forward of his own accord, pleading with me to accept the abdication. As the leader of the civil officials, Uncle Zhao's words naturally carried weight. The civil official faction wouldn't oppose him. As for the military officials, there was even less need to mention their stance. Ever since the bullet comments mentioned undiscovered continents overseas, military expenditures absolutely couldn't be reduced. I increased the benefits and treatment for soldiers to prepare for future overseas expeditions, with my father spreading the word. Which soldier wouldn't know that their improved conditions were all thanks to me? The military officers naturally hoped I would firmly secure the throne. Who knows what treatment they'd receive under a different emperor? In short, they couldn't offer better terms than what I had proposed. At this point, I repeatedly declined, saying, as a woman, wouldn't I be rather unsuitable? But every time, the officials refuted my objections. Wan Qing then stepped forward and declared solemnly, "Your Majesty the Empress Dowager, if even you are not fit to be emperor, then who in all the world could possibly be suitable? I beg you not to refuse any longer, lest you break the hearts of the common people." So I stopped refusing and reluctantly ascended to the throne. Seeing this scene, the barrage erupted with waves of ha ha ha, lol. Says she doesn't want it, but secretly overjoyed. Right, where's that guy who said women can't achieve great things? See this? The entire court begged our sister Qin to become empress. One word, absolutely exhilarating. Hehe, this throne was personally abdicated by the emperor to our sister Qin. Who dares say her ascension wasn't legitimate now? Zhao Wanqing is simply the ultimate wingwoman. After discovering Sister Qin's ambition, she went back and fed the young emperor medicine that induced heart failure every single day. As a result, the moment he returned to the palace, he was diagnosed with a heart condition and had to be coddled. He never got to taste the thrill of wielding real power, only the exhaustion of being emperor. No wonder he wanted nothing to do with the throne. Meanwhile, I sat upon the dragon throne, exchanging a swift, knowing smile with Wan Qing. After ascending the throne, my court officials advised me to choose a husband, but I refused. For women, childbirth is like passing through the gates of hell. If anything were to happen to me during childbirth, all the favorable circumstances that Wan Qing and I had painstakingly achieved would be ruined. The reason I kept the young emperor was solely for him to produce heirs. No matter how many concubines he takes, all offspring born shall be daughters. 40 years later, I passed the throne to my granddaughter. By the sickbed, I faintly saw bullet comments flooding the screen with farewell, Your Majesty the Empress. Seeing this, I curled my lips and smiled, saying, thank you all. Without you, I would never have dared to imagine that a woman could become emperor. It was you who ignited my ambition and helped me reach this day. Thank you. The barrage instantly erupted with exclamation marks. Holy shit, I knew our sister Qin always gets what she needs. I thought she was the chosen one. Turns out it's all our doing. Hehe. With our spoilers, who else could be the chosen one if not her? Mom, I'm awesome. I assisted an empress. As for me, amidst waves of drowsiness, I gradually closed my eyes. After hearing the two stories above, what are your thoughts? Feel free to share your opinions in the comments section. Looking forward to hearing from you. If you liked this story, don't forget to like it, share it, and subscribe to my channel. See you next time.